So welcome everyone to our webinar today, where we'll be discussing how generative AI is really transforming Canadian manufacturing and where it is having an impact. So if you're unfamiliar with our organization, AI for Manufacturing Canada, we are, joined today by some of our members and our board members here to really bring together a conversation from an industry perspective for industry. And as well, kind of just to kick off the conversation, I wanted to highlight our key pillars here at AI for Manufacturing Canada, which will then lead into kind of the broader conversation of generative AI in manufacturing. So with that, here at AI for M, we're built around these 9 pillars of AI for manufacturing use cases and systems. As you can see, there's a variety of different areas that really emphasize where AI can be applied, whether it's, continuous improvement and predictive maintenance and all of that, or supply chain management and understanding, the technologies that can support your business and make your bottom line stronger. As well, there's the kind of softer side of ESG and HR and skills development that really, I think, sometimes fly under the radar. So today in our conversation, we'll be kind of covering all of these areas in a broad conversation on where, generative AI and AI models actually fit into the conversation. I'm very excited to be joined by an awesome panelist and awesome moderator, Michael. I will pass the floor off to Michael for his introduction and to go around the room, if you will, of our panelists without further delay.
Thanks, Nicole. Great being here to moderate this. I'm very honored that Engine reached out in AI for manufacturing. Certainly, since I've been working for Microsoft over the last 5.5 years or so, been very active in the data and AI space. So I've been in the manufacturing industry over 20 years, worked in various capacities, but fundamentally, in the last couple of years, especially, been super excited in the capabilities that are available to more and more manufacturers of all sizes. So if we go to the next slide, digitization or instrumentation and capturing data in manufacturing isn't a new concept. But in the last, 5 to 10 years, as kind of big data and analytics and cloud computing and so forth have come to the fore, the utilization of that data has become much, much more important and is often the difference between having a competitive edge or lagging the industry. And so, being very active in the space. And then since the launch of ChatGPT and the use of large language models, it's really kind of opened up the availability of using AI at scale. And that's been super exciting. And it's pretty evident that there is demand for that because the adoption of ChatGPT was the fastest ever in history of an application. And what I've been seeing at Microsoft and the work that we're doing in the manufacturing domain is that there's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of people testing all sorts of different use cases and so forth. And very happy to share with my colleagues here today on what's happening in the industry. So if we go to the next slide, I'll just give everyone kind of what we're seeing at Microsoft. So, across the manufacturing domain globally at Microsoft, certainly we've been activating a lot of generative AI use cases. So, how do we take existing environments, existing production systems, engineering systems, supply chain systems, how do we take that information and make it more actionable and so forth? And these are the areas that we've seen for generative AI really come to the fore, be it in product engineering and R&D, sales and marketing, supply chain and manufacturing operations, and customer experience and field support, as well as security operations. And so the idea of shortening root cause analysis or augmenting the worker on the shop floor or providing research into new designs and then converting that into new ideas faster than ever has certainly been an exciting aspect of how generative AI is kind of bringing AI to the masses. So with that, I will pass it over to my first colleague, Remy, to talk about some of the work he's doing.
Excellent. Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Nicole. It's always a pleasure to be on the AI for manufacturing webinars, and Gen AI is certainly a key topic of interest in all industry, and especially in manufacturing. So from my standpoint, Rémi Duquette, I'm the Vice President of the Industrial AI and IoT practice at Maya HTT. We've been in business for more than 40 years, and prior to Michael being at Microsoft, I did a lot of work on the Siemens side as well. And anyway, it's always a pleasure to be here with Michael and Brian and David as well. It would be a fun discussion today, I'm sure. From a MyHTT perspective, when we look at Gen AI, we certainly see the huge impact that it has had already to streamline some of the industrial operations side, whether it's on the maintenance and troubleshooting, right, for technicians, the shop floor to just ask basic natural language type of queries into a chat-like environment to give immediate and relevant responses to their issues that they're experiencing, especially for the younger staff, is really amazing and augmenting people in a very new and significant way. So looking forward to this. And Maya, from a partner in this journey with a lot of clients, we've been 150 industrial and manufacturing projects in terms of delivery. Many of the later ones are related to Gen AI and various chat-like functionality that are deployed on the shop floor. So looking forward to the discussion with my peers today.
All right. Thanks, Remy, Michael, Nicole. Great to be on the call with you all here. Brian as well. Really appreciate joining it. So my name is David McNally. I'm the founder and CEO of Agile Intelligence. We're a digital transformation company. So started Agile back in 2017 to specialize in digital transformation to be able to get that data that I noticed was being collected, whether you're a small operation or you're a fortune size operation. It didn't seem to matter. There was still at some points in time, regardless of the automation that you had in your facility, there was some points in time where somebody was going around with a piece of paper, somebody's going around with manual data, and or there was other decision makers waiting for data to come from the sources that were automating that transfer to other leads. So we set out to automate that and simplify that process through our simple, more practical solutions. I like to say before we even wrote a line of code here at Agile, we went out and we signed order forms with customers on a "if you build it, we will come" type basis. And we've been working with industry directly ever since. So all the features inside of our solution, all the deliverables that we provide are industry driven solutions. So practicality is a big focus for us and very much committed to that continuous improvement mindset, which fits in with the AI for M goals. Um, it's critical to have a lean-based continuous improvement mindset with AI and digitization. We've been early adopters of both internally and with our customers around AI and guiding them and providing insight as to how they can use AI in conjunction with our solution or as a standalone. The power of it is just remarkable, right? And there's no need to be an expert in it. I know it's a scary topic and it's a big topic, and very much like digital transformation, because they all kind of meld together. They're large topics, and sometimes it can get overwhelming. And the important part is to just start, right? Just start utilizing digital transformation, start utilizing AI tools in order to improve your processes. And I always love to add that quote at the bottom of my slide here that somewhere something incredible is waiting to be known. And if in all of your operations right now you have data that's available to you, and the insights that you could pull from that data with the right solutions in place can be certainly incredible for you. So really happy to be on the panel. Looking forward to the discussion and contributing and adding some value where I can. Thank you.
Awesome. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brian Vaughn. I'm thrilled to be here today as a senior data scientist and MLOps competency lead on Adastra's analytics team. So I have over 6 years of experience in implementing AI and ML projects across a diverse number of industries. I've had the privilege of working on some of the most exciting and challenging projects and helped to drive business growth and success. So just a little bit of a background on Adastra. So at Adastra, we're committed to delivering scalable, stable, secure, and high-performing solutions to our clients. We have a global network of over 2,600 data and analytics professionals across 16 offices in 9 countries. And we're a trusted partner to Fortune 1000 and small and medium-sized enterprise organizations across multiple industries. And our success is built on a deep commitment to collaboration, innovation, and excellence. I'm also a resource manager at Adastra, and I'm responsible for mentoring our Nova to our intermediate consultants and helping them develop skills and knowledge they need to become top performing data professionals. And through my experience, I've learned that mentoring is not just about teaching others what you know, but also learning from them. And especially with our new consultants coming out of colleges and universities, learning a lot from them in terms of them bringing fresh insights related to everything Gen AI related with all the hype in the industry today. So that's great for growing together as a team. One area where I had particular success in delivering manufacturing projects is in the aerospace, beverages, and automotive sectors. These projects have been complex and challenging, and there's I find that from time to time there's a lack on the knowledge base of some of the clients we deal with, which tends to be like a good launching point in terms of getting a project started more on the educational side, and then from there working into actually implementing the Gen AI. Let's see what else. Yeah, so another area that I have experience within like generative AI is just across multiple cloud platforms. So we see a lot of implementation working across like Microsoft and AWS, implementing stuff like ChatGPT and Bedrock. And working with this is giving me a deep understanding of the latest tools and technologies and techniques in AI and ML and how to apply them to solve complex business problems. And so a little bit more so for Adastra. So at Adastra, we offer a breadth of multi-vendor services and solutions that enable our clients to leverage our latest technologies and innovations to drive business growth and success, whether it's implementing AI and ML projects, generative AI, developing data-driven strategies, or managing complex data infrastructures. Our team of experts is dedicated to delivering exceptional results that exceed our clients' expectations. So I just want to say thank you to all the panelists and to Michael for running this panel. I really appreciate everybody's time for including me being a part of this. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Brian. I mean, I think this is amazing. The talent we brought together here that are delivering projects, and I'm excited about the discussion and the different perspectives that everyone has, or maybe there's some similar perspectives. But either way, it's great to share our experiences. So I'll kick it off into some of the Q&A here in the panel, and my first question is around, for our panelists is, how do you think manufacturers should look at generative AI? And maybe Remy, I'll start with you.
Well, maybe I'll piggyback a little bit on what Brian just mentioned, right? On improving training and onboarding, in terms of the staffing aspects of the industrial and manufacturing shop floor aspects. What we've seen in terms of Gen AI, and certainly been the case as we've seen improvements, whether it's by leveraging RAG-based type of architecture or other type of architecture where we can leverage the documentation either on cloud or on-prem from the end clients on the manufacturing shop floor. Having those documents readily available and having ChatGPT or equivalent other large language models to answer and help training and upskill younger shop floor workers and onboarding them in a much faster way than they used to. Manufacturing is a tricky business, and each manufacturing shop floor has its intricacies and its different machines, different processes, even for the same, kind of pulp and paper type of air-laid production, you go to one shop floor to another one in a different plant, and the slight differences are really tricky to handle. So from a shop floor worker perspective, having access at your fingertips to these types of documents that you may or may not know exist, right, to help you train yourself and upskill yourself, I think is where I see manufacturers, should start, or at least look there first, because it's a great way of training and upskilling and augmenting their staff with the latest technology, and removing to the points of David, and also on the buzz and the non-practical aspects of it. It's like, really, if you focus on the practical aspects of the onboarding, I think that's where most manufacturers could see value right away by using Gen AI type of environments and tools and platforms.
Yeah, that's great, Remy. I mean, you're seeing, obviously, it's coming back to the workforce, right, and the people. Um, David, would love to hear your perspective on how you think manufacturers should look at generative AI.
You're on mute.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of similarities in our responses here, right, across the board. But just to piggyback on what Remy said, that's a great way to utilize AI from a practical perspective, and I think that's the key word, right? Is the practicality that you can implement into your workforce using AI to enhance and augment your skills, to enhance and augment your team, to make sure that you're getting that good output, right? That input versus output for great productivity is what we're all looking for all the time. And, I certainly see it with the companies that I work with. That onboarding is always a challenge, right? It's a costly challenge, and it's a skills challenge. There's gaps there. And to Remy's point, it doesn't matter whether you're going into the exact same industry with the, a competitive place. They could be producing the same widget, but they're doing it in slightly different ways. So anytime that you can enhance that training and that onboarding, I think is important. And then to take it another step forward, so you've got them onboarded, you've got that skills gap covered, they've got the knowledge to get out there and start doing the job and being productive for you. What about tracking their performance? What about tracking their data input, right? Somebody is somewhere, generally speaking, is collecting data on how they're producing that day, what their productivity is that day, what's their throughput, whatever that is from a KPI perspective that you're measuring, right? If you can get that data into a usable format, then you can glean those insights out of it. So not only can you use AI to improve that onboarding piece, to cover off that training piece, and make sure you have a less cost involved in that side of things, and a more informed and aware employee. But then you take it the next step. What's that informed and aware employee doing? How are they producing for you? How can you utilize, predict, and apply the data that you're capturing around their process or around their performance, to make sure that you're putting practical solutions in place that can continue to get the most out of that employee? I think that those two things combined really, make sense on where generative AI can make a meaningful impact in a manufacturing operation.
Yeah, that's great insights. It's interesting, David, in my experience with kind of providing digital solutions and augmentation of the workforce, initially the kind of culture, and especially the leadership, is a little concerned that there's going to be pushback in this area. And so they're kind of reluctant to do it. But what I've observed, and I'd be curious if you saw the same thing, when they get those tools and they realize it helps them make them do their jobs better, it actually kind of really turns the corner. Is that what you're seeing as well?
Oh, 100%, Michael. You nailed it right on the head. It doesn't matter whether we're going into a 10-person company or a 500 or 1,000 or more person company, right? At the end of the day, it's the change that's the most fearful, right? How are they going to adopt to the change? What's going to happen when we make that change? I literally had a call with a customer yesterday that's just new customer, just starting to use the solution, and they're saying it's just, we're scared that the floor team is going to be, is going to resist it, right? So that is natural. It's a normal part of the process. You gotta just accept that there's going to be fear there, that there's going to be a hesitation to change. One of the closest people that I work with, one of the managers in an operation, he always says, throw those people right into the project, right? Get them involved from day one. Let them see the output of it. Let them see the value of what it is that we're doing. And to your point, Michael, that's when they get over that hesitancy, right? It's seeing the value of it, and it's understanding that, oh, geez, this is actually making a difference for us. So now I'm going to adopt it. Now I'm going to keep using it. And then let's put continuous improvement. Let's put lean methodologies back in place here. Engage them afterwards to find out what are other things that we can do to make this better, right? Now that you're becoming an expert in your role, how can we make your role more efficient? What can we do to enhance that? So yeah,
Yeah,
I hope that was
absolutely.
helpful.
And I love that idea of, the kind of biggest objectors. Once you get them on side, obviously they can be big change agents as well. So,
Big time.
and it helps you tackle the tough problems up front too, which is great. So Brian, don't want to leave you out of this conversation. What do you think manufacturers should do when they're looking at generative AI?
Yeah, so just to tag on to what Remy was referring to there. So basically, I think when we're looking at when we're trying to look at, say, something like a retrieval augmented generation implementation, where an individual is able to, say, like interact with that with like a Q&A chatbot. What we really need is we really need the information to be super relevant to the individual, right? So that might mean that we need to make like a separate reg database, so we can have data architecture set up where, depending on the specific job of the individual, when they're interacting with that LLM, um, they're making a query to that proper reg database. We also need to worry about the data architecture of the pipeline that populates that reg database, right? So like what we're seeing is we're having issues where documents that are being embedded and then pushed into our reg databases are becoming outdated. So how do we go about keeping that database up to date so that when we're looking to get contextually relevant results from that database, they're the most recent information, and we're not looking at outdated documents. So that's another thing that manufacturers should keep in mind when implementing generative AI, just to make sure that it's a proper implementation, everything's up to date, and it's actually giving contextually relevant results to the individuals that are using it. Otherwise, people are just going to stop using those chat endpoints altogether.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I mean, I think, there is a trepidation around generative AI, producing imprecise results and so forth. And obviously, you pointed out the quality of data going in is important. I know at Microsoft, there are some techniques that have developed that have helped kind of address those.
Mhm.
And curious if you've seen the same in terms of like the use of citations, so people understand like the sources of the feedback
Yeah,
and so forth.
100%. Yeah. So basically, you want to embed like a hyperlink to the source documentation, so that if there's any miscommunication between what gets generated in the summarization and the source material, they're still able to link back to that source material.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it's definitely a process. I mean, I think that, we've seen, the interesting thing that I've seen in some of the use cases is there's been kind of co-pilots built for individuals to help them with their job. And the source documentation might have been a standard operating procedure. We actually have discovered at customers where the SOP was wrong. So they actually had to update their operating procedures to make it, more relevant and more accurate to the actual current practice. So it's kind of
Mhm.
interesting how Gen AI actually can highlight kind of gaps in the process as well.
Big time, and that's another good point there, because even with the Q&A chatbot, you can set up like a rating mechanism, like when you're interacting, right? So then if it's like if the information you're getting back is not useful, it's actually detrimental to the process on the floor, give it the thumbs down, and then use that in order to train the next generation of that. Or if you're using like a fine tuning methodology, use those prompts to fine tune it for the next iteration. But it's also great for having a human in the loop for that specific implementation, so that the human can go in and say, okay, these documents need to be updated. Like, it's yeah, it's a good call out for sure.
Yeah, and I love that. I mean, that kind of continuous feedback can, really helps augment continuous improvement processes as well.
Big time. That's why LLM ops is going to become like definitely super valuable, like on an ongoing basis for sure.
We barely got out of ML ops. Now we're onto LLM ops. So,
Exactly. Yeah, definitely.
and might help out actually if we maybe put some of the the acronyms like
Yeah.
RAG, retrieval augmented generation, and stuff in the chat in case people want to look it up. It's a technique to combine search with generative AI models, so that that's how you get the results. So let's move on to the next question. And the question is, what are the top sources of value you're seeing in generative AI? And if you have some examples or use cases that you've worked on, and maybe David, I'll start with you on this time.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's a few internally and externally, absolutely. You know, it's such an overreaching question, really, right? Because there's so many use cases for AI, and in your own operation, or adding value for customers. And I think without a doubt, one of the areas where I'm hearing from the manufacturing community as to where they're seeing the most opportunity for adding value into their operations, I think without a doubt, it's around predictability, right? It's around predictive maintenance. It's around making sure that they understand when and where and how to do things better, minimizing that downtime, right? Trying to glean out as much waste as they possibly can in their processes. We're used to such static maintenance schedules, right? Every 3 months, you have to grease this bearing or whatever it might be, right? Every 6 months you have to do this. Within every 2 years you have to do that. And I really think that, as manufacturers start getting more data, as they start going towards more digital transformation, because surprisingly, that's one of the fallacies here that we'll touch on later, I'm sure, but you said it earlier, it's good data in, data out, right? And you got to have the data going in order to utilize the AI properly. So as you start getting more data in there, and the AI can learn from that data and start predicting as to when there's going to be problems based upon the results that they're seeing, not just on your PM schedule, but on your maintenance response forms and on your downtime captures, and on your throughput, the impact that has on throughput. I think that right there is going to be a huge one for people as PMs. But take it a step further, and what's that all about? Well, that's all about quality, right? It's really all about quality, and it's all about making sure that you have good productivity in your operations. So I think quality control, quality enhancement, making sure that companies have the right quality processes in place in order to be able to respond not only to customer concerns, but respond to internal concerns, respond to supplier concerns, respond to compliance concerns. I mean, the compliance side of the industry is it just keeps piling on to onto manufacturers, right? Having to follow this compliance or that compliance. That's areas where AI can really add a ton of value in keeping up with that. And whether that's an AI that's going back, a bot that's going back in and looking at a BRC compliance, or looking at an SQF, or whatever that particular protocol might be that you have to follow, and bringing that information forward, as you guys were talking about earlier, right? Is this information up to date, so that you're not responding to situations that are out of date, and then all of a sudden you get into an audit and you get downgraded for some reason that you weren't aware of? AI can really augment and make a big difference there. So I think it's the predictability of the maintenance schedules and how that all combines into quality, and make sure that you got a good quality product going out the other end. So you got so everything that you need is aligned there. So that's where I would see the particular source of value for AI at the customer level, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's interesting how you mentioned responding to maintenance, or responding to that's certainly an area where large language models, like helping the response, like the alerts might already be there, but how do you mitigate a problem like faster than before? Kind of speaks to some of the earlier points. Brian, what's your perspective on that? What are the top sources of value you're seeing?
Yeah, so like the number one top source of value for sure is like what I see being the most common, is essentially with that, like we were speaking about before, like the retrieval augmented generation, chatbots, just giving contextual relevant results. I'm also like we've seen a couple different use cases outside of that though. So we did do um, it was more of a data driven decision making implementation. So basically it was we had like for a manufacturer we were working with, they had a sales forecasting model. So basically we had a pipeline that would look at like individual um, like clients, and then it would look at like which products per these clients were performing above or below expectations. And then where we implemented the Gen AI is once those forecasted results were generated, we wanted to make them useful and then save time on trying to interpret forecasting results, right? So basically, we would take the forecasted results, we would hit the LLM, it would return a summary of what was happening for that specific product. It would push that into a Snowflake database and then synchronize that with Salesforce so that when the sales team were coming in, say on like a Monday morning, they would go and they would look at the client that they were dealing with, and it would give them a summary of which products they should be focused on trying to sell because they're either underperforming in the market where they should be overperforming, or any sort of interpretation from that end. It would kind of like solve that for them. And then outside of that, we've seen like another use case. It was more of like a process automation use case. So LLMs, depending on the LLM you're using, there's all sorts of different ones that are trained on different data sets. So we used like one that was built specifically for code conversion to help with a migration project we were working on. So one of our clients asked us to take the code that they were using to make business analysis reports in one programming language and then convert that to a new programming language. So we basically used prompt engineering to, or sorry, not prompt engineering. We used so we fine tuned the model to do like give it like a summary of how the code conversion would work, and then we use that to just accelerate the process of converting from one language to the other. And what we found is that I think we reduced the expected migration time by about 73% on that project by using Gen AI. And then the thing is that depending on the size of the project, it could make sense. But if it's a small scale project, putting that initial time might not be worth it. But if it's a large number of reports that you need to do that conversion on, then putting in that first little POC piece to prove that the concept is or yeah, to prove the concept basically, right? Then then you can definitely like automate that process and save yourself a ton of time for sure. And then I guess outside of that, another manufacturing use case we had was basically like warranty classification. So we would have like a warranty claim come in. We would use computer vision to pull all the information off the warranty claim, and then we would classify that warranty claim. We would figure out which team that the classification or the warranty claim should be sent to, and then give a like an action and a result based off of the information that we pulled from the warranty claim. So those are yeah, that's some of the value I've seen on our side.
Those are great examples, and such a range there. I've seen the warranty classification. It's a different version of that actually. Interesting thing there from a data cleanliness perspective is we've used generative AI to help classify based on like a lot of kind of wide ranging inputs, right? So from a data cleansing perspective, you can actually use Gen AI there too. Remy, I need to get to you. What are the top sources of value that you're seeing in your Gen AI projects?
Well, certainly, I think as Brian David covered already, I would definitely agree with the, number one on the, RAG-based type of access to documentation, whether it's for maintenance, troubleshooting, assemblies, or common mistakes, right, that are made, or something jams, like what to do when this tool jams in the shop floor, right, the next steps and the workarounds. So there's a lot of information that from a referenceable reusable approach where the document link in the page is shown certainly is of very high value, and we've seen those deployments work very well for that case. One area that we have been, let's say, more involved with perhaps is on the leveraging the product lifecycle management information that engineering typically, right, has put in the product itself. And typically that information is not translated onto the manufacturing shop floor and into the manufacturing execution systems on the MES side. So one thing that we've done is interface, in a natural, kind of language way to query PLM information, product lifecycle information for manufacturing use cases, and for figuring out perhaps very simple things as reusable parts or alternative parts on the shop floor, whereas normally you would have to call in engineering and try to get engineers that worked on that system or subsystem to figure out what alternatives they may have, whereas all that information is readily available in their PLM system already. So that has been a very high value, and I was a bit kind of surprised by the option on the shop floor for the PLM information, but through that kind of simple, chat, based interface. So that certainly has, I think, in the last couple of months, raised a lot of interest, and I see a lot of value for the end clients on that front. Yeah. I
Well,
see your smile, but
yeah, this is a domain that's close to my heart. I mean, I was implementing engineering systems for 18 years before joining Microsoft, and
yeah.
so, totally agree. Those PLM systems, or the knowledge that's captured in engineering change decisions and so forth, that's rich information that it really lends itself to these types of use cases. So
yeah, all
yeah.
the engineering change notice that come in and are all accessible in that system, right? So why not make that available through a natural language interface for the shop floor workers to access previously, agreed or disagree, or rejected ECNs, and why, right? All the information is there. So that is really of high value, and it's a simple, right? It's a low-hanging fruit. The information is there. You just put an interface to it in a natural language and environment. So anyway, that enough said there, but big source of
I'm
value.
glad I'm on the same page as you, Remy, on this. So I really appreciate that. So let's move on to our next question for our panel. And the question is, what are some surprising things you've noticed when working on generative AI projects? And maybe I'll start with you, Brian.
Oh, are you able to hear me? Sorry, my
Yep.
my screen froze. Okay, yeah. So some surprising things I noticed when working on Gen AI projects. So basically, one of the main things I've noticed is that the model size isn't always the key to success. So I guess a common belief is that the bigger the model, the better. But in some cases, it makes more sense to deal with a smaller model and do, I guess, like implement a different strategy in order to leverage that model. So what we've done is we've like created like basically a matrix to figure out to look at specific models that could be useful given the specific use case. We look at like basically the model name, what type it is, like like a proprietary or like an open source model. Because like in some cases, like open source are fine tunable, but proprietary are not. Whether or not there's a commercial license, how many parameters were used in order to train the model, to see if it's going to be too computationally intensive to like basically leverage the model at scale, what the speed of the model is, how large the context window is, right? So you want to know if I ask a question, is it going to be able to, be able to have a contextually relevant conversation for long enough, given how many questions and answers need to be a part of the context. And then what was the training data set for the LLM, right? So what are we dealing with? Are we dealing with like internet data? Are we dealing with code? Are we dealing with instructions? Is it like a human feedback model? And then is it fine tunable? And does the customer have the existing skill set in order to be able to properly leverage this model? Because If the skill set's not there, or if even outside of that, if we give a fine-tunable model to a client and the client doesn't have the skill set in order to be able to take ownership of that model, then are we gonna have to set up like support on an ongoing basis? Are they gonna like, does it make sense for them, right? So that's one of the things that I've noticed on Gen AI projects. And then another thing is that Gen AI models can be creatively inaccurate. So they can produce very naturally sounding content, but with like hallucinations. It just introduces like factual inaccuracies, and yeah, they confidently generate like outputs that may sound accurate, but if you misinterpret them, then that could be a major issue. But there's a lot of mitigation strategies that we found. So like bringing humans into the review process, using quality curated data for training, trying to add a layer for fact checking is one that we're aware of. We haven't implemented it ourselves, but that's something we're looking to do in the future. A big one is keeping the models updated. So like I was speaking to before, keeping that reg database like up to date is definitely super helpful. And then setting clear guidelines for your AI outputs. So basically putting a layer, but I guess like if you put the prompt in, giving the like I basically I guess like level setting for the response, saying that it's okay to be factually, or no, it's not okay to be factually inaccurate. If you don't have a proper answer, then don't give me an answer. Like no answer is also okay. Then
Yep.
that seems to help with that part of the process for sure. But
Yeah, I've seen that definitely in the prompt engineering. Also limit your response based on these data sets and things like that as well. But
for
yeah,
sure.
no, really interesting. I mean, bigger isn't always better, and certainly, there is a lot of development there. Small language model